The shuttle landed with a soft hum on the metal floor of Station Helix 9. Kira Vasquez stood up from her seat and grabbed her single bag. She was 19 years old with dark hair tied back in a simple ponytail and brown eyes that held a quiet strength. She wore the gray uniform of a new cadet, and on her shoulder was a small patch that showed a blue and green planet. Earth. She was the first human to ever join the Galactic Coalition Military Academy. Many species had voted against allowing her entry. Humans came from a Class 12 Deathworld, they said, a planet filled with poison, predators, and extreme temperatures, a world where the very air could kill weaker species. How could such creatures be trusted? But humanity had proven itself useful. Their ships were fast. Their soldiers were stubborn. And so, after much debate, the Coalition had allowed one human to train at their most respected academy. Kira had been chosen. She stepped off the shuttle and into a wide corridor filled with alien cadets. Some were tall and covered in scales. Others were small with many legs. A few floated through the air using organs that Kira could not understand. They all stopped and stared at her. Kira felt their eyes. She heard the whispers. "That is the human. I heard they eat flesh. Their bones do not break easily, very dangerous. Do not look at its eyes. They are predator eyes." Kira kept walking. She had expected this. Humans were new to the galaxy. They were strange and unknown. Fear was natural. She would simply have to prove herself through hard work and patience. A tall officer with blue skin and 3 eyes met her at the end of the corridor. He looked at a tablet in his hand and then at Kira. "Cadet Vasquez," he said. His voice was flat. "You have been assigned to room 714. Your roommate is already there. Do not cause trouble." "Yes, sir," Kira said. She found her room after walking through several more corridors. The station was huge, filled with training areas, classrooms, and living quarters for hundreds of cadets from dozens of species. Kira memorized the path carefully. Humans were good at that, remembering things, tracking things. It was part of what made other species nervous around them. The door to room 714 slid open with a soft sound. Inside, Kira saw the most beautiful creature she had ever seen. Her roommate was small, barely reaching Kira's shoulder. Her skin was pale and almost see-through, like thin glass. Soft light glowed beneath her skin, shifting in gentle colors of blue and pink. She had large dark eyes that took up much of her face, and from her back grew 2 delicate wings, made of something that looked like spider silk in morning dew. The creature let out a small sound of fear when she saw Kira. She backed away until she hit the wall. "Please," she said. Her voice was soft and musical. "Please do not hurt me." Kira stopped. She put down her bag slowly and held up her hands to show they were empty. "I am not going to hurt you," Kira said. She kept her voice gentle. "My name is Kira. I am your new roommate." The creature's wings trembled. "You are the human." "Yes. Humans are dangerous." Kira thought about this. She could not lie. By the standards of the galaxy, humans were dangerous. They could run for hours without stopping. They could survive injuries that would kill most species. They could eat foods that were poison to others. Their immune systems fought off diseases that wiped out entire alien populations. "I can be dangerous," Kira admitted, "but I am not dangerous to you. I promise." The creature studied her with those large dark eyes. Something in Kira's voice or face must have convinced her, because slowly her wings stopped trembling. "I am Thessaly," she said. "I am a Morellian." "It is nice to meet you, Thessaly." Kira learned much about her roommate in those first few days. Morellians came from a paradise world with low gravity and gentle weather. They had evolved to be light and fragile, with hollow bones and thin skin. Their wings could carry them through their planet's thick, calm air. They were known across the galaxy as artists, musicians, and healers. They were not known as warriors. "Why did you join the military academy?" Kira asked one evening. Thessaly's glow dimmed slightly. This, Kira had learned, meant she was sad. "My family needed the money," Thessaly said quietly. "Military service pays well. I thought I could do support work, medical training. I did not think I would have to fight." But the academy did not care what Thessaly thought. Every cadet had to complete combat training. Every cadet had to pass physical tests. The instructors did not adjust their standards for fragile species. In the first week, Kira watched Thessaly struggle. The Morellian could not run fast. She could not lift heavy objects. When she tried to fight in training matches, she was knocked down within seconds. Other cadets laughed at her. Some pushed her in the hallways. One group of Crethian cadets, large reptiles with scales and 4 arms, made it their special hobby to torment her. "Go back to your flower world," they would say. "You do not belong here." Thessaly would say nothing. She would just lower her head and walk away, her glow fading to almost nothing. Kira watched all of this. At first, she did not interfere. She was new. She did not want to cause problems. She needed to focus on her own training. But then one night, she returned to their room and found Thessaly crying. The Morellian was curled up on her bed. Her wings were wrapped around her body like a blanket. Soft sounds of pain came from her throat. When she looked up at Kira, her large eyes were wet with tears that glowed faintly in the dark room. "They said I should quit," Thessaly whispered. "They said I am a waste of space. They said I will fail and bring shame to my family." Kira stood very still. Something shifted inside her chest. It was an old feeling, something that humans had carried for thousands of years. A protective instinct, a need to guard those who could not guard themselves. She walked to Thessaly's bed and sat down beside her. Carefully, gently, she placed a hand on the Morellian's shoulder. Thessaly flinched at first, then relaxed. "Listen to me," Kira said. Her voice was calm but firm. "You are not a waste of space. You are brave. It takes courage to leave your home and come to a place like this. It takes strength to keep going when everyone wants you to fail." Thessaly looked up at her. "You think so?" "I know so." Kira met her eyes. "And I want you to know something else. From now on, you are under my protection. No one touches you. No one hurts you. Ever." "But why?" Thessaly asked. "Why would you protect me? We barely know each other." Kira smiled. It was a strange human expression, one that showed teeth. Most species found it frightening, but Thessaly somehow found it warm. "Because that is what humans do," Kira said. "We protect our friends." That night, something changed between them. They were no longer just roommates. They were something more. Thessaly did not have a word for it in her language, but humans did. Family. Commander Vorath was a monster in uniform. He stood over 2 meters tall, with thick green scales covering his entire body. He had 4 muscular arms, each one ending in clawed fingers that could crush metal. His eyes were yellow with black slits, like a snake, and they held no warmth. He was a Crethian, from a warrior species that valued strength above all else. Vorath had commanded the Academy's combat training division for 15 years. In that time, dozens of cadets had been injured under his watch. Some had quit. A few had disappeared. No one asked questions. Vorath had powerful friends in the coalition military. He hated weakness. He hated anything soft or gentle or kind. But most of all, he hated change. The Academy had always been a place for strong species, warriors, predators. Then the politicians started letting in weaker species for diversity. Morellians, Feldschen, Velnoxi. Creatures that had no place in combat. Creatures that, in Vorath's opinion, polluted the military bloodline. And now they had let in a human. Vorath had studied the files on humans carefully. What he read did not make him afraid. It made him angry. Humans were unpredictable. They did not follow the normal rules of combat. They could take damage that should kill them and keep fighting. They formed strange emotional bonds with other species. Bonds that made them protective and dangerous. A human could upset the balance of power at his academy. A human could challenge his authority. This could not be allowed. But Vorath was smart. He could not simply attack the human directly. Earth was watching. The coalition was watching. If he hurt the human without cause, there would be consequences. So he decided on a different approach. He would hurt the things the human cared about. Vorath watched Kira Vasquez closely during her first month at the academy. He saw how she performed in training. She was impressive. Her endurance tests broke academy records. She could run for 3 hours without stopping. She could hold her breath for 4 minutes. She could take hits from Crethian cadets and stay standing. He could find no fault with her performance. This frustrated him. But then he noticed something else. He noticed how the human always sat with the Morellian at meals, how she walked the fragile creature to classes, how she stood between Thessaly and anyone who tried to bother her. Vorath smiled. His teeth were sharp and yellow. He had found his target. The next few weeks were difficult for Thessaly. Vorath assigned her to extra training sessions. He made her run obstacle courses designed for species 3 times her size. He paired her with the largest, strongest cadets for combat practice. Each time Thessaly was hurt, bruises appeared on her pale skin. Her wings developed small tears, but she did not complain. She did not quit. Kira helped her every night. She cleaned Thessaly's wounds with gentle hands. She brought her food when the Morellian was too tired to walk to the dining hall. She whispered encouragement when Thessaly wanted to give up. "Just a little longer," Kira would say. "You can do this. I believe in you." Vorath watched their friendship grow, and his hatred grew with it. The human was supposed to be a monster, a predator. Instead, she was acting like a nursemaid to a useless creature. It disgusted him. He decided it was time to end the game. On a cold morning in the 3rd month, Vorath announced a special training exercise. Kira and a group of other promising cadets were sent to the station's outer ring for a long-range endurance test. They would be gone for 6 hours. This was not a coincidence. Vorath had planned it carefully. With Kira gone, he called all remaining cadets to the main training hall. Thessaly stood among them, her wings folded tight against her back. She looked small and afraid, surrounded by so many larger species. "Today," Vorath announced, his voice echoing through the hall, "we will test your combat readiness. You will be paired randomly for sparring matches. The rules are simple. Fight until one opponent yields or cannot continue." The matches began. Cadets fought each other with training weapons in bare hands. Some matches were fair, others were not. Vorath did not care about fairness. When Thessaly's name was called, she stepped forward with trembling legs. Her opponent was a Crethian cadet named Groth. He was young but already huge, with 4 arms thick with muscle and scales that shone under the training lights. Groth grinned when he saw Thessaly. He had been one of the cadets who tormented her in the hallways. "This will be easy," he said. Thessaly raised her hands in a defensive position. It was hopeless and everyone knew it, but she would try. She would not shame herself by refusing. The match began. Groth did not attack immediately. He circled Thessaly slowly, enjoying her fear. The other cadets watched in silence. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked excited. None of them spoke up. When Groth finally moved, it was fast. His first punch caught Thessaly in the shoulder and sent her spinning. She hit the floor hard. "Yield!" she gasped. "I yield!" Vorath's voice cut through the hall. "Request denied. The match continues." Thessaly looked up in shock. This was against the rules. A cadet could always yield. That was the law. But Vorath was the law in this hall. Groth grabbed Thessaly by her wing and lifted her off the ground. She screamed. The sound was high and thin and terrible. Her wing was not meant to bear weight. The delicate membrane began to tear. "Stop!" someone in the crowd shouted. "You are hurting her!" Vorath said nothing. He simply nodded at Groth. The Crethian cadet threw Thessaly across the room. She hit the wall and crumpled to the floor. But Groth was not finished. He walked to her and kicked her in the side. There was a cracking sound. Then another. Her hollow bones were breaking. Thessaly stopped screaming. She did not have the strength left. She lay on the cold floor, her beautiful bioluminescence fading, her wings torn and twisted at wrong angles. Blood seeped from beneath her body. It glowed faintly pink. Vorath walked to the center of the hall. He looked down at Thessaly's broken form with cold satisfaction. "Let this be a lesson," he announced to the watching cadets. "This is what happens when inferior species forget their place. The military is not for the weak. The military is not for those who cannot fight. If you do not belong here, you will be broken." He turned and walked away. The cadets stood frozen. No one moved to help Thessaly. They were too afraid. Finally, a medical team arrived and carried Thessaly away. Her body left a trail of glowing blood on the floor. 6 hours later, Kira Vasquez returned from her training exercise. She was tired but pleased. She had performed well. She was looking forward to seeing Thessalia and telling her about the day. She walked into the medical bay to find her friend. What she saw stopped her heart. Thessaly lay on a white bed, wrapped in regeneration mesh from head to toe. Her wings were hidden beneath layers of healing fabric. Machines beeped around her, monitoring her weak vital signs. She was unconscious, sedated to escape the pain. A medical officer, a kind old Feldschen with gray fur and tired eyes, stood beside the bed. "What happened?" Kira asked. Her voice was very quiet. The Feldschen looked at her with deep sadness. "There was an accident during training, a sparring match that went too far." "An accident," Kira repeated. The word tasted like poison in her mouth. "Who was she fighting?" The Feldschen hesitated. "Cadet Groth, a Krethian." "And who ordered the match to continue after she yielded?" Silence. Kira looked at the Feldschen. Her brown eyes had changed. They were no longer warm. They were no longer kind. They were the eyes of something ancient and dangerous. The eyes of a predator. "Commander Vorath," the Feldschen whispered. Kira said nothing more. She pulled a chair to Thessaly's bedside and sat down. She took her friend's small, cold hand in her own, and she began to plan. Kira sat beside Thessaly's bed for 3 hours. She did not move. She did not eat. She barely breathed. She simply held her friend's hand and watched the machines track her slow, weak heartbeat. The doctors said Thessaly would live. They said her bones would heal in time, but her wings were badly damaged. The membrane had been torn in multiple places. The delicate structures that allowed her to fly might never work properly again. For a Morellian, wings were everything. They were beauty. They were freedom. They were identity. Taking a Morellian's wings was like taking a human's hands. Kira understood this, and something cold and hard began to grow in her chest. When the night shift began and the medical bay grew quiet, Kira finally stood up. She leaned down and pressed her lips gently to Thessaly's forehead. "I will be back," she whispered. "I have something I need to do." She walked out of the medical bay and into the station's corridors. They were mostly empty at this hour. A few cadets passed her, but they looked away quickly when they saw her face. There was something in her expression that made them afraid. Kira walked to a computer terminal in a quiet corner of the station. She entered her access codes and began to search. The training hall had security cameras. Every match was recorded for review. If she could find the footage of Thessaly's sparring session, she would know exactly what had happened. The system blocked her access. The footage had been classified. Only senior officers could view it. Kira stared at the screen. A human from 100 years ago might have given up. But Kira had grown up in a time when humans were learning to survive in a hostile galaxy. She had been trained by Earth's best intelligence officers before coming to the academy. They had taught her many things, including how to get past security systems. It took her 20 minutes to break through the blocks. The footage appeared on her screen. She watched it once, from beginning to end. She saw Vorath announce the match. She saw Groth circle her friend like an animal stalking prey. She saw Thessaly yield. She heard Vorath deny her request. She watched Groth grab Thessaly by the wing and throw her across the room. She heard the cracks as her bones broke. She saw her friend's light fade as she lay bleeding on the floor. She watched Vorath stand over Thessaly's body and deliver his speech about inferior species. Through all of this, Kira's expression did not change. Her heart rate did not increase. Her hands did not shake. She simply absorbed the information, processed it, and stored it away. A Velnoxy cadet named Seren had been watching from down the corridor. She later told investigators what she saw. "The human watched the footage 3 times, Seren said. Her voice trembled at the memory. "I was curious, so I observed her. I expected anger. I expected tears. I expected some display of emotion, but there was nothing. Her face was completely blank. And then she closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, she was different. I cannot explain it properly. It was like the person I knew had stepped aside, and something older had taken her place. Something that had been sleeping inside her. Something from the time when humans hunted on the plains of their Deathworld." Seren paused before continuing. "I have seen many predator species in my life. Krethians, Vorax, hunters from a dozen worlds. But I have never been so afraid as I was in that moment. Because those other predators, they hunt because they are hungry. They hunt because it is their nature. But what I saw in that human's eyes was different. It was not hunger. It was purpose. She was not going to hunt because she needed to. She was going to hunt because someone had hurt her family. And I understood then why humans survived on their terrible world. Not because they were the strongest, not because they were the fastest, but because when you hurt what they love, they do not stop. They never stop. Kira closed the terminal and walked away. She moved through the station with quiet steps, following a path she had memorized weeks ago. She had always noted the locations of important places, the armory, the command center, the training halls, the escape routes. This was another human instinct. Always know your environment. Always have a plan. She stopped outside the armory. The quartermaster was a very old Feldschen named Torvak. He had served in the coalition military for 60 years. He had seen many things. He had read the classified files on every species in the galaxy. When he saw Kira approaching, he stood very still. His gray fur bristled with ancient instincts, telling him that a predator was near. Kira looked at him. She did not speak. She did not need to. Torvak stepped aside from the armory door. "I saw the footage," he said quietly. "What Vorath did was wrong. Many of us know this, but we are afraid to act. We are not like you." Kira looked at the weapons behind him. Blasters, energy blades, shock batons, tools of violence from 100 different worlds. She shook her head slowly. "I do not need weapons," she said. Torvak's old eyes widened. He understood what this meant. Humans did not need tools to be dangerous. Their bodies were the weapons. Their hands could crush. Their teeth could tear. Their endless endurance could wear down any opponent. "Be careful," Torvak said. "Vorath is connected. If you do something foolish, they will execute you." "I know," Kira said. "Thank you for your concern." She turned and walked away. Torvak watched her go. Then he did something he had not done in 30 years. He said a prayer to the old gods of his world. He prayed for the human soul, and he prayed for Commander Vorath, because he suspected the commander would need prayers more than anyone. Kira returned to the medical bay. The lights were dim. Thessaly still slept, her broken body slowly healing. Kira sat down beside her once more. She stayed there through the night, thinking and planning. She mapped out the station in her mind. She calculated distances and times. She reviewed everything she knew about Krethian anatomy. Their scales were strong, but there were weak points. The joints, the soft tissue under the arms, the nerve clusters in the neck. She thought about her training on Earth, the martial arts that humans had developed over thousands of years, ways to defeat larger and stronger opponents, ways to use an enemy's strength against them. When the first lights of the artificial morning began to glow through the medical bay windows, Kira leaned close to Thessaly's ear. "I made you a promise," she whispered. "I said no one would hurt you. I failed to keep that promise. I am sorry, but I will make this right. I do not know if you can hear me. I do not know if you would approve of what I am about to do, but I need you to understand something." She paused, her voice catching in slightly. "You are my family, Thessaly. In a galaxy that feared me, you were the first to smile at me. You were the first to see me as more than a monster. You gave me friendship when I expected only loneliness." Kira's hand tightened gently around Thessaly's. "Humans have a saying. We call it the pack bond. When someone becomes part of our pack, we protect them with everything we have. We fight for them. We bleed for them. We die for them. And if someone hurts them, we make sure it never happens again." She stood up and looked down at her sleeping friend. "I do not know if Vorath will survive today. I do not know if I will survive today. But I know one thing with absolute certainty. He will never hurt anyone again. I promise you this. Not as a cadet, not as a human, but as your friend." Kira walked to the door of the medical bay. She stopped and looked back one more time. "Rest now," she said softly. "When you wake up, everything will be different." Then she was gone. The hunt had begun. Commander Vorath enjoyed his morning routine. He woke at the same time every day. He ate a large meal of raw meat, as was traditional for Krethians. Then he went to his private training chamber to fight combat drones and maintain his physical perfection. This morning was no different. He entered his chamber, a large room with reinforced walls and floors designed to handle the violence of Krethian combat practice. He activated 3 drones and began to fight. His forearms moved in deadly patterns. He struck and blocked and dodged with the skill of a warrior who had been fighting for 40 years. The drones were good, but he was better. Within minutes, all 3 lay broken on the floor. Vorath smiled. He was still the strongest. He was still the best. He thought briefly about the Morellian. He had heard she would survive. Disappointing, but not unexpected. Her injuries would serve as a reminder to the other weak species. And her human protector? Vorath had seen no sign of retaliation. Perhaps humans were not as dangerous as the files suggested. Perhaps the bond between the 2 females was not as strong as he had thought. This made him feel even better. He activated 3 more drones and began another round of combat. He did not notice when the lights flickered. It was a small thing. Just a brief moment of darkness, lasting perhaps 2 seconds. The station's AI immediately logged it as a localized power fluctuation. Origin unknown. Cause unknown. When the lights returned, Vorath was no longer alone. Kira Vasquez stood in the center of the room. The blast doors were still sealed. The security system showed no breach. There was no logical way she could have entered. And yet there she was. Vorath froze. His combat instincts screamed at him. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. Kira stood perfectly still. She wore her simple gray cadet uniform. She carried no weapons. Her hands hung loose at her sides. Her face held no expression at all. "How did you get in here?" Vorath demanded. Kira did not answer. She simply looked at him with those strange flat eyes. Vorath felt something he had not felt in many years. Fear. It was a small feeling, buried deep beneath his pride and arrogance. But it was there. He crushed it immediately. This was foolish. He was a Krethian commander. He weighed 400 kilograms. He had 4 arms capable of crushing steel. He had killed enemy soldiers in 13 different engagements, and she was just a small human female. Soft skin, weak bones, no claws, no scales, no natural weapons of any kind. He laughed. The sound echoed through the chamber. "So the human has come to avenge her pet," he said. "I wondered if you would. I hoped you would. It will be my pleasure to teach you the same lesson I taught her." Kira still did not speak. She did not move. She simply waited. This annoyed Vorath. He was used to seeing fear in the eyes of those he faced. He was used to seeing anger or hatred or desperation. But this human showed him nothing. It was like looking at a machine. "Nothing to say," he growled. "No threats, no promises of revenge. Perhaps you are smarter than I thought. Perhaps you have realized that you cannot win. Perhaps you have come to beg for mercy." Kira finally spoke. Her voice was calm and quiet. "No mercy," she said. "Not for you. You hurt my friend. You broke her wings. You broke her bones. You broke her spirit. There is no mercy for that." Vorath grinned, showing all his teeth. "Then we understand each other. Come, human, let me show you what happens to those who challenge me." He lunged forward, all 4 arms reaching for her. What happened next lasted exactly 11 seconds. Later, when security officers reviewed the footage, they would watch those 11 seconds again and again. They would slow it down. They would analyze every movement. They would try to understand how a creature half Vorath's size with none of his natural weapons could do what she did. They never fully understood. Vorath's first attack was a grab with his upper right arm. It was fast. Faster than most species could track. His clawed hand should have closed around Kira's throat, but Kira was not there. She moved like water. One moment she was in front of him, the next she was beside him. She did not block his attack. She did not meet his strength with her own. She simply flowed around it. Vorath spun and struck again. This time he used all 4 arms at once, a technique that had never failed him. It was impossible to dodge 4 simultaneous attacks from different angles. Kira dodged them all. She moved in ways that Vorath had never seen. Her body bent and twisted at angles that seemed impossible. She was always exactly where his attacks were not. It was like fighting smoke. Vorath felt the fear growing. He pushed it down and attacked harder. His fist finally connected. It hit Kira in the ribs with enough force to crush the chest of most species. She stumbled back a step. Then she straightened and kept moving. Vorath's eyes widened. That blow should have ended the fight. At minimum, it should have broken bones and ruptured organs. But the human was still standing, still fighting, still showing no expression on her face. He did not know about human endurance. He did not know about the way their bodies could absorb damage that would kill other species. He did not know about the adrenaline that flooded their systems in combat, blocking pain and increasing strength. He learned. Kira changed her approach. She had been dodging, testing, learning. Now she began to attack. Her first strike hit the nerve cluster under Vorath's lower left arm. His entire left side went numb. He stumbled. Her second strike hit the soft tissue where his upper right arm connected to his shoulder. Scales protected most Krethians, but there were gaps. There were always gaps. Kira had studied Krethian anatomy. She knew exactly where to hit. Vorath roared in pain. He swung wildly with his remaining functional arms. Kira caught his upper right arm. For a moment they stood frozen. Vorath stared down at the small human who had somehow grabbed his limb. Her hands looked tiny against his massive arm. Her grip should have been meaningless. It was not meaningless. Humans, Vorath learned in that moment, were much stronger than they appeared. On Earth, they had evolved to throw spears, climb trees, and carry heavy loads across vast distances. Their muscles were dense and efficient, and when those muscles were powered by rage and protective instinct, they could do terrible things. Kira twisted. The sound that followed was something no one in that room would ever forget. It was a wet, tearing, cracking noise. The sound of flesh separating, of bone breaking, of a limb being pulled from its socket through sheer force. Vorath screamed. It was a sound of pure agony, torn from the deepest part of his being. Kira stepped back. In her hands, she held Vorath's severed arm. The commander collapsed to the floor. Green blood poured from the terrible wound in his shoulder. He looked up at Kira with eyes filled with shock and terror. This was impossible. This could not be happening. No one could do what she had just done. Kira stood over him. For the first time, her expression changed. There was no satisfaction in her eyes, no joy, only cold, heavy sadness. "You hurt my friend," she said quietly. "You broke her wings because you thought she was weak. You thought no one would stop you. You were wrong." She looked down at the arm in her hands, then dropped it on the floor beside him. "I am going to leave now," she said. "When they find you, you will tell them exactly what happened. You will tell them about the Sally. You will tell them about every other cadet you have hurt. You will confess everything, or I will come back. And next time, I will not leave you alive." Vorath could only whimper. His entire world had shattered in 11 seconds. Kira walked to the blast doors. They opened for her somehow, just as they had closed behind her. Security forces were already rushing down the corridor, drawn by the screams. They stopped when they saw her. She was covered in green blood. Her uniform was torn. In the room behind her, Commander Vorath lay in a spreading pool of his own blood, missing one arm. Kira looked at the security officers. There were 6 of them, all armed. "He hurt my friend," she said simply. "This is your only warning about what humans do to those who harm the ones we protect. I will accept any punishment, but he will never teach again." She raised her hands and allowed them to take her. A junior Krethian officer, his hands shaking, asked the medical team how the arm had been removed. The answer came back in the official report. 3 words that would spread throughout the station, throughout the fleet, throughout the entire galaxy. Manual detachment, no tools. The era of underestimating humans was over. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. Within hours, every major news network was reporting the same story. A human cadet had attacked a Krethian commander. She had torn off his arm with her bare hands. She was being held in a maximum security cell on Station Helix 9, awaiting trial. The reactions varied by species. The Krethian Dominion was outraged. Commander Vorath, despite his cruelty, was a decorated officer from a noble family. His injury was seen as an insult to their entire species. They demanded immediate justice. They demanded the human be executed publicly. They threatened to withdraw from the coalition if their demands were not met. Earth's response was calm and cold. The Interstellar Council, humanity's governing body for off-world affairs, released a simple statement. They expressed regret for the incident. They promised to cooperate with the investigation. But they also made one thing very clear. If Kira Vasquez was executed without a fair trial, humanity would consider it an act of war. For the first time in history, Earth's fleet began to mobilize. Ships that had been docked for years powered up their engines. Weapons that had never been fired were loaded and tested. Soldiers who had trained their whole lives for a conflict that never came put on their armor and waited. The galaxy held its breath. An emergency tribunal was scheduled on Station Helix 9. Representatives from every major species would attend. The fate of Kira Vasquez would be decided, and perhaps the fate of the galaxy itself. Kira spent 3 weeks in her cell. She did not complain. She did not resist. She ate the food they gave her, exercised in the small space she was allowed, and waited. The guards watched her constantly through cameras and reinforced windows. They were afraid of her. Even behind bars, even unarmed, she frightened them. Sometimes, late at night, she would stare at the ceiling and wonder about Thessaly. Was she healing? Was she afraid? Did she know what Kira had done for her? She hoped her friend would forgive her. The day of the tribunal arrived. Kira was brought to the main assembly hall in chains. Hundreds of representatives filled the seats. Cameras broadcast the proceedings to billions of viewers across the galaxy. Kira stood in the center of the room, small and alone. Her face was calm. Her back was straight. She showed no fear. The tribunal began with the prosecution. A Krethian attorney presented the case against Kira. She had entered a restricted area without authorization. She had attacked a superior officer. She had caused permanent injury to said officer. These were serious crimes. The punishment should be death. Then it was time for the defense. The attorney assigned to Kira was a tired-looking human named Marcus Chen. He had been sent from Earth specifically for this trial. He stood up and looked at the assembly. "Before I present my arguments," he said, "I would like to call a witness, someone who can provide context for what happened that day. I call Thessaly of Mirella." A murmur ran through the crowd. This was unexpected. The doors at the back of the hall opened. Thessaly entered slowly, supported by a medical hover chair. Her wings were wrapped in healing mesh. Her pale skin was marked with fading bruises, but her large dark eyes were clear and determined. Kira's heart jumped when she saw her friend. She wanted to call out to her. She wanted to apologize. She wanted to explain, but she stayed silent and still. Thessaly floated to the witness stand. She looked out at the hundreds of faces watching her. Then she began to speak. Her voice was soft but steady. She told them about her first day at the academy. She told them about the fear and loneliness she had felt. She told them about Kira, the human who had become her friend when no one else would. Then she told them about Commander Vorath. She described the extra training sessions, the impossible tasks, the cruel words and cruel actions. She described the day of her injury in painful detail. How she had yielded and been denied. How she had been beaten and broken while the commander watched with satisfaction. "He told us we were inferior," Thessaly said. "He told us we did not belong. He hurt us because he could, because he enjoyed it, because no one would stop him." She paused and looked at Kira. No one except her. The hall was silent. Many faces showed shock. Others showed shame. A few showed something like understanding. Thessaly was not finished. She had done her own research during her recovery. She had talked to other cadets, other victims. She had gathered testimonies and evidence. "Kira Vasquez is not the villain of this story," she said. "She is the hero. For years, Commander Vorath has abused his position. He has hurt dozens of cadets from species he considered weak. Some were injured so badly they had to leave the academy. At least 3 have died from complications related to their injuries. This information was suppressed by Vorath's allies, but I have found it, and I present it now to this tribunal." She transmitted the files to every screen in the room. The evidence was damning. Medical reports, security footage, written testimonies, a pattern of cruelty and abuse stretching back over a decade. All of it ignored, all of it hidden, until now. The Krethian representatives looked uncomfortable. This was not what they had expected. They had come to see a human punished. Instead, they were seeing their own officer exposed as a monster. More witnesses came forward. Cadets who had been afraid to speak before, Officers who had seen things but stayed silent. One by one, they added their voices to Thessaly's. The tribunal lasted 3 days. When it finally ended, the verdict was clear. Commander Vorath was stripped of his rank and all honors. His military record was erased. He was exiled from Krethian space, forbidden to return to his homeworld for the rest of his life. Several of his allies, officers who had helped cover up his crimes, faced similar punishments. Kira's fate was more complicated. She had broken laws. She had caused serious injury. This could not be ignored entirely. Her sentence was 1 year of restricted duty and mandatory training in something the Coalition called interspecies sensitivity. She would remain at the academy but could not participate in advanced combat exercises during that year. It was a slap on the wrist. Everyone knew it. The Krethian Dominion protested loudly, but they had lost too much credibility. The evidence against Vorath was too strong. They could not demand harsher punishment without looking like they supported his crimes. Earth's fleet powered down and returned to their docks. The crisis was over. In the weeks that followed, something changed across Coalition space. People began to talk about the incident in a new way. They did not call it the attack or the crime. They called it the lesson. The lesson was simple. Humans were dangerous, not because they were violent or cruel, but because they formed bonds with other species. Deep, powerful bonds that turned them into protectors. If you befriended a human, you were safe. They would fight for you. They would bleed for you. They would tear the arms off anyone who hurt you. A new policy was quietly created. It had no official name. It was not written in any law book, but every officer in the Coalition military knew about it. If a cadet had a human friend, that cadet was not to be harmed during training. Period. No exceptions. The risk was simply too great. Among the alien species, this unwritten rule became known as the Deathworld Treaty. Months passed. Thessaly's wings healed slowly. The doctor said she might fly again someday, though she would never be as graceful as before. She accepted this with the quiet strength that Kira had always admired. One evening, near the end of Kira's restricted duty period, Thessaly found her human friend sitting alone on an observation deck. Stars filled the window, thousands of points of light against the endless black. Thessaly floated to her side and settled into the seat beside her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "I never thanked you," Thessaly finally said. Kira shook her head. "You do not need to thank me. I failed you. I was not there when you needed me. You were there when it mattered. You made sure it would never happen again." Thessaly's bioluminescence glowed warmly. "The other cadets talk about you now, not with fear, with respect. The weaker species, the ones who were always bullied, they feel safe for the first time." Kira said nothing. She was not comfortable with praise. Thessaly reached out and took her hand. Her touch was gentle, like holding a flower. "You could have been executed," she said softly. "You risked everything for me." "Why?" Kira finally looked at her. Her brown eyes, so often cold and guarded, were warm now, open. "You are my friend," she said simply. "My family. On Earth, we have a saying. Family is not about blood. It is about who you choose to stand beside, who you choose to protect." She squeezed Thessaly's hand gently. "I chose you." Thessaly's eyes filled with glowing tears. "Humans are terrifying," she whispered. Kira smiled. It was that strange expression that showed teeth, the one that used to make aliens flinch. But Thessaly did not flinch. To her, that smile meant safety. It meant home. "Only to those who deserve it," Kira said. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Two beings from different worlds, different species, different lives, yet bound together by something stronger than blood or biology. Friendship, family, the Deathworld girl and her Morellian sister, a warning to anyone who would threaten those under their protection. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and it would never forget.